Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you always stay healthy, and thanks for watching this channel. Today we will talk about Chinese bombers carried out a mock attack on a real US aircraft carrier. A recent Chinese military exercise in the South China Sea turned out to be far more provocative than originally reported. A large force of Chinese Air Force bombers flew into the South China Sea at the same time a U.S. Navy carrier was in the area. The bombers reportedly carried out a simulated attack on the carrier, practicing an attempt to sink it. A recent Chinese show of force in the South China Sea, practiced at the same time a U.S. aircraft carrier was operating in the area, was far more aggressive than originally believed. 8 Chinese Air Force bombers flying near the USS Theodore Roosevelt weren't just responding to the carrier's presence in China's backyard, they were actually rehearsing an attack on the carrier task force. The incident took place on January 23, 3 days after President Joe Biden's inauguration. The USS Theodore Roosevelt carrier strike group entered the South China Sea through the Bashi Strait, sailing between Taiwan and the Philippines. Around the same time, 8 People's Liberation Army Air Force H-6K bombers, accompanied by 4 J-16 fighters and a Y-8 anti-submarine warfare aircraft, took off from airfields on China's central coast and headed south. Their course, as the map embedded in the tweet above shows, would have put them on course to intercept any ships sailing through the Bash Strait. When Popular Mechanics covered the incident last week, we pointed out the H-6 bombers can carry up to 6 land attack cruise missiles each. The Financial Times, however, reports the bombers were actually drilling to attack the Theodore Roosevelt itself. People familiar with intelligence said the bombers and some of the fighter aircraft involved were conducting an exercise that used the USS Theodore Roosevelt carrier strike group. One person familiar with the incident said the Chinese aircraft remained more than 250 nautical miles from the U.S. carrier and accompanying warships at all times. Pilots of H-6 bombers could be heard in cockpit conversations confirming orders for the simulated targeting and release of anti-ship missiles against the carrier, the People said. The 13 Chinese military aircraft involved in the incident represent an anti-carrier strike package. The 8 H-6 bombers were the shooters meant to target the Roosevelt. The bombers would have practiced launching a missile like the YJ-12 anti-ship missile, a large anti-ship missile with a top speed of Mach 3 to 4 and a range of 248 miles. The aviationist says each H-6 can carry up to 6 YJ-12 missiles, for a theoretical total of 48 anti-ship missiles on this mission alone. The 4 J-16 fighters were escorts tasked with protecting the bombers. The Y-8 anti-submarine aircraft may sound like a curious inclusion, but the unarmed Sub-Hunter's surface search radar would have made it a useful scout for locating the carrier strike group at sea. Last week's bombers sortie was a dangerous escalation in U.S. and Chinese military encounters. The U.S. and Russia routinely fly bombers near each other's borders, but limit the number of planes to 2 or less. Flying 1 or 2 bombers is militarily useless, and both sides recognize it as more of a trolling exercise than anything else. But flying 8 bombers with pilots practicing orders to launch missiles goes beyond trolling and enters the realm of a feasible military mission. The Chinese did hold back a little bit during the exercise. The range of the missiles, and the distance the bombers kept from the carrier strike group, meant the bombers didn't actually come close to firing range. Still, that's not much comfort, considering the bombers actually practiced an attack. If the mission was real, could the carrier strike group have protected itself? The YJ-12 is a formidable missile, but the carrier, and its escorts would have proven a tough nut to crack. First, the carrier would have around-the-clock combat air patrol protecting the ship, consisting of Super Hornet strike fighters, and an E-2D Hawkeye airborne early warning and control plane. The E-2D's radar would pick up the non-stealthy Chinese aircraft at a distance of hundreds of miles, and send a greeting party of Super Hornets to intercept. Each carrier embarks between 40 and 44 Super Hornet strike fighters on a typical patrol. In most cases, that would probably be the end of it, as the better trained and equipped American fighters quickly shoot down the Chinese strike package. But for the sake of argument, let's assume the H-6 bombers managed to launch their missiles. Now, the carrier and its 6,000 sailors and aircrew are in real danger. The YJ-12 is reportedly a sea-skimming missile, meaning it flies close to the surface of the ocean in order to evade radar. A radar can only see line of sight, and the curvature of Earth limits a ground-based radar's ability to detect low-flying targets. Although the missile has a 250-mile range, the YJ-12's low cruising altitude means the incoming swarm of missiles may not be detectable until 25 miles or less. The missiles, flying at Mach 3 or 4, can close the distance in less than 1 minute. Under normal circumstances, the carrier's escorts, which typically include a guided missile cruiser and 2 or more destroyers, would have just seconds to shoot down any Chinese missiles. The U.S. Navy's new Cooperative Engagement Capability, CEC, now means an E-2D Hawkeye, cruising at high altitude, can look down and track the YJ-12s and pass targeting data to the carrier's escorts, allowing them to shoot the incoming missiles down at much greater distances.
So that is it guys for my today's news video. I hope you enjoy it, so be sure to subscribe and don't forget to click on the ring button so you will not miss any notification when I upload a new video. Thank you very much for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye.